part of the story about this trip involves some long time dreaming about doing it. When my husband and I were very big travelers, we went probably to at least half a dozen places that have mountains because we used to climb. And one of the things that we could not do was this trip because we couldn't afford it. And by the time we could afford it, my husband was terminally ill, and so we never got to do it. And after he had passed away, I was already in my mid-70s, and I had serious qualms about whether I was up for this trip. So part of this presentation is to persuade everybody that you could do this even if you had a walker. I mean, there's not really very much about this trip that is either strenuous, because you don't have to get off of the ship. Anyway, it seems that I'm not going to be able to do this. Maybe like that. Can you hear now? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to start with the first thing, which is, I told you there's an age theme in this. And this was celebrating my birthday. Who knows where it is? Las Olivas, right. And this was, we included this one because there is an age element to it. So that's the first one. And now we get to the actual map of where we're going to go. And by the way, if you ever decide to do this, they never guarantee that you're going to do exactly the itinerary that they say because of the weather. So, but this is where we started in Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city of the world. I think that's what they told me anyway. And we came down through the Beagle Channel, crossed the dreaded Drake Passage, came down to the Shetland Islands, and the weather was so good that the captain, you can't just go and take off onto the land just anywhere. You have to let them know because they don't want too many people. And in fact, only 50 people can get off the ship at any given place. So the captain called ahead and he made an appointment that we would have an extra Zodiac visit, and it would be in the South Shetland Islands, which is where they didn't used to stop there. So let's see what that is. This is the itinerary. We started, as you can see, from the US. We went to Buenos Aires, Tierra del Fuego, the Drake Passage, and then all the rest of it is mostly in the Antarctic region. We had 5 complete days that we were in the Antarctic, the part that is called the Antarctic. And then, of course, we had to come back again. The first place that we were at was Buenos Aires, and I think a lot of people will recognize that this is La Boca, which is the area in Buenos Aires where they have a lot of tango. In fact, you see tango everywhere, on the street, in the restaurants, in the theaters, everywhere. So I'm just giving you a little flavor of what this is like. And it's a little long, but the last part is the sexy part, so I know you all want to see that bit. And this, of course, is in the middle of the street, and there are people around. Overseas adventure travel, but I'm not sure that we're supposed to mention that. Oh, I don't know, because I think... Okay, this is the bit. Whoops! I think they get paid actually by the travel companies. Okay, so that's the end of that. And these are some of the other very gaily painted places in La Boca that makes it such an interesting place. Okay, and it was a beautiful morning, and that was how we were so lucky. First of all, I almost didn't get on the ship because I got the last berth. The last berth actually was a double, and I asked if I would be considered for it going solo with the same price as solo, and I got it. So always push your luck. Okay, so that was there. And the other thing, you know, with the tour company that I went with, there's always some spare time. And in our spare time, my friend and I went to this beautiful old theater. It's called El Ateneo now, but I don't think it was before. Maybe it was. But it's full of books, 3 layers of books, every type of book that you can imagine in different languages and very spectacularly displayed. We flew from Buenos Aires to Ushuaia, and the thing that I want to impress on you is the fact that this is the bottom end of the world, and this, even in summer, is really quite bleak. And we just had, right from the beginning of this trip, spectacular weather. So all of these, I should have said that the ship that we went on was chartered for just the tour company that I was going with. And since there were 94 people and we filled the whole ship, we were divided into 4 groups, and I was in blue group. It was just like kindergarten. So that was a day in Ushuaia. While we were still there, we also had a day in the national park. And the interesting thing about this is that this is a monument inside the park that tells you that it is the end of the Transamerica highway. So that starts in the northern reaches of Alaska, and then it goes all the way down to here. And people make a career out of doing it and advertising and writing books about it and stuff. Okay. This was our first glimpse of the ship. It's called the Hebridean Sky. And the reason for that is because normally it operates in the Arctic, but in the Hebrides. And so I don't know why we got that ship, but anyway, it was chartered. Everybody on it was belonging to our big group. This was it as we saw it at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This was as we left. You can see that the clouds were kind of threatening and it was very windy. So now we get to the Drake Passage southbound. First of all, every day inside the main lounge, they put up the itinerary for the day. And actually, one of the first things that we had to do was to go and be part of this mandatory presentation. This is by a group called the IATO Association, and this is what every passenger that goes into the Antarctic has to sign. Oops, what happened there? Did I do that? Oh, it's better like that. Okay, yes, you can see it better. That's very good thinking. Okay, so in order to be able to get off the ship at all, you have to sign that you're going to follow these protocols. And this was a thing that was set up by the 12 nations that use parts of Antarctica in 1959, and they drew up this list of rules. Now, there are rules, I mean, they are sort of rules, but they're not sort of legal rules. They are protocols which they hope that everybody has agreed to stand by. So every time you went off the ship, we had to get into a little bowl, of disinfectant. And we had to do the same thing coming back, and actually, depending on where we had been, we also had to have like a scrub down. So they would have a hose and with a, quite a heavy force, and they would do all the bottom part of you so that there's nothing from where you've been that comes back on the ship. Also, they on the first day, they suggest that you, for every time you get off the ship, you use the same clothes. And the reason for that is that they tested to see if you had seeds on you. If you're a hiker, for instance, you might have them in the folds of your jeans or something. So we all chose what we wanted to wear every time we got off, which was actually going to be 10 times. And we did that then. This is the Antarctic Treaty, which covers that same thing that I was talking about the protocols that you have to have. And it covers things like keeping the landscape pristine. And it talks about supporting the scientists who work there and not interfering with their work. And what else? Let's see, and protection of wildlife. So just like in the Galapagos Islands, you can't approach the animals, but if they come to you, that's okay. And it's the same thing there. If the penguin comes and stands, right next to you, you're okay with that. Okay, so there are rules. To get into all that gear, there's long johns, jeans, the waterproof outer coverings, the 3 layers on top, and this is the life-saving equipment. And then, of course, you have to have a hat, and you have to have the parka, which they gave us. I didn't bring it home. Most people didn't bring it home. We donated it to some homeless people in Ushuaia on the way back. That photo was taken actually by a passenger, a person that was in one of the groups, and he had just got a new camera. And so he just happened to see me there. But I liked that photo because it looks very professional. Of course, I didn't take it. And so I was looking down, and here are the zodiacs. And each time that we went off the ship, they had to lower those zodiacs off of the top of the ship, and they would go down, and there would be 10 of them. Now, I think that I said before that you can't have too many people getting off the ship at the same time. I mean, not in one place. So since there were 94 of us, we had to go in the zodiacs. 2 of them would go to this place, and we figured it so that we weren't overloading that landing place. Now, this is where the interesting part comes in. I don't have a very good camera. In fact, it's a real old iPhone. So the leader of our group had also just got himself a new fancy camera that, you could shoot 2 miles away and get the picture. So all the photographs on here are his, and he knows that we're all using them. So it's like, there's no copyright or anything. So this is the Wandering Albatross. We saw many of these before we ever got off the ship, even in the South Shetland Islands. The wingspan on this is about 11 feet. But when they fly over, they fly quite high, and they really look sort of more or less like a hawk or something like that, something that we have here, until you see them sort of come down a bit, and then you realize, my God, that's a very, very large wingspan. This, and of course, the group leader also put the little signs to tell what they are. So I know Ray is just coming, and he'll be very happy that they're all got the names on. So all of the photos that are of wildlife are his. Okay, so this is now the day that we're at the South Shetland Islands. We've just got off. Two things I want to draw to your attention. My tech support person was very interested in what this brown stuff was. And it's actually penguin poop, and it's everywhere. I mean, everywhere that the penguins are. And it is smelly, it is sticky, and you can't get back on the ship with it on your boots. So you have to think about ways of getting it off. And I think I told you before that getting dressed, this whole outfit, takes about 20 minutes. This was a photo that I took close up that I thought was going to be a photo, and actually it's moving. But I thought I'd just leave it there because it's kind of cute. Okay, so this photo was also part of that day at the South Shetlands. And when we left there, this is the scenery that we were encountering. So we were already in the area where there are ice floes and icebergs. I don't know the difference, so whatever. I put all these photos on to show the impact of what people, how people change the scenery. This was a time when we were on, I honestly don't remember which time this was, but what I want to draw your attention to is how small that ship is. The landscape is so vast and so beautiful that it's hard to imagine, you know, it's hard for people that haven't been there, I think, to imagine it. And this is the way that mostly we went when we were walking in single file, and that was to reduce the amount of impact on the snow. Okay, so next, this is just an arbitrary, I don't even remember where that is, but it's obviously got the glacier behind. This is to show to you that not all of the Antarctic is covered in snow. So this part down here, where is it? Oh, there, is clearly the beach area, I think. And it's quite rocky and sandy, you know, but I don't know why it is that it's not covered in snow, but it isn't. The tour that I was on recognized people that were on that tour who were doing their 7th continent. And there were a lot of them. I'd say at least half the people were doing the 7th continent. And they just had this little poster made, and you could stand up and get your photo taken with that advertising. Here we are. We certified that this person did today's step on the Antarctic continent. And it was interesting. I didn't know this, but when you get down there and you see all the snow and the ice and you are not necessarily on the continent of Antarctica. When we go back to the map, I'll show you that the Antarctic Peninsula sticks out, and it's not until it joins with the rest of the mainland that the Arctic Circle comes across. I mean, the Antarctic Circle comes across. So you have to be on the other side of that thing to claim that you have done the 7th continent. So just in case you ever need to know that. Okay, so you can see from this that even with protocols in place, you are still disrupting the pristine snow quite a bit. Also, sometimes they put a chain down. Every day that we went off the ship, the people who were the expert naturalists and so forth, there were probably about 12 of them, all went ahead to make sure that there was nothing that was going to cause a problem. So they would go and they would walk the whole route that we were going to walk, and then very often, if there was anything that was kind of even remotely dangerous about it, they put this chain down. And the chain meant you can either, well, they would tell you, you can either be 2 feet on this side of it or 2 feet on that side of it, but no further. And the reason was because there can be crevasses. And they didn't want people, disappearing from view because it would have made, a big hassle. So that is a chain. I think everybody can probably tell that. I think you put that in there. Okay. Okay, so now we get to some of the wildlife. And these were seen all on one Zodiac trip, where we didn't get off the Zodiac. We just stayed there. And we could see this from where the Zodiac went. This is a fur seal, crab-eating seal, leopard seal, and later on, towards the end of this presentation, there's going to be a video which was also made by the group leader, and in this one was doing antics. So you got something to look forward to seeing. Now, this was the same trip. This particular one was not interested in being social. The most that he did was he raised, I think that's his head, I'm not sure, honestly. And that was the most that he did, really, that was acknowledging that we were even there. This person is a friend that I made on the first day, and for anybody who's never traveled on their own, I would suggest doing it because very often, right away, everybody's in the same kind of situation as you are, so everybody makes friends. And we were sitting on a Zodiac somewhere. Now we've got, these photos were mostly, all of them were taken by the group leader, but this was very early in the morning. This is about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were in a channel that had glaciers on this side and glaciers on that side that were close enough that you could actually see them, which was not the case for most things. And we got up early, and some of us went up onto the top deck, and as far as the eye could see, there were spouts coming up. There were probably like 30 or 40, not just one whale causing the spout, but maybe a couple of them in the same place. It was just full of whales, which is an unbelievable scene. You don't expect to see it, especially at 5 o'clock in the morning. So, next one. Oh, this was a different day. Again, we didn't get off the Zodiacs, but we went to see the iceberg formations. And this blue line down here, you'll also see in the video at the end, and it's made by snow and ice that is melting faster than the rest of the iceberg. This was a very popular one. Everybody took a photo of that one, and I've even got quite a good photo of that. Not sure exactly why I put this one in, possibly because of this pink in the snow and ice, because that indicates that there are algae in the snow. And again, it shows you that not all of Antarctica is actually just snow and ice. A lot of it is rock. There's the footprints on that same pink snow. And also, not all of Antarctica is kind of beautiful and scenic. Sometimes you get this kind of rather ugly stuff. I put that one in too because of the bird. And I don't know why this is not functioning, but you can see the bird on top of the rock at the back. Now, I hope everybody's ready for something a little sad. These two birds up here are skuas. And I didn't know it, but there are actually skuas in the Arctic as well as the Antarctic. This is the southern skua. And they're sitting there for a reason, because just down where you can't see, in front of that rock there, there's a huge group of penguins, and the penguins, for some reason this year, were born late. I don't know how that figures with the weather or something, but anyway, they were. And so there are many, many penguins the small chicks that were still small when we were there in February, which is usually much too late to see chicks. But there was one chick who apparently had either been abandoned by his parents or had just, got separated from the parents. And when the naturalist went to do the look-see to make sure everything was okay for the passengers to come, it had situated itself between her legs, between her feet, actually. And it was almost like that chick, even though it was pretty young, knew that it needed to get some defenses because probably it could see those skuas too. Anyway, so after a while, when the naturalist had talked to all the people coming past about the things that we were supposed to be looking at, the little group of penguins decided it was all going down to the water, so they all left, and left this one that was on its own. And of course, the naturalist couldn't do anything about it because you're not allowed to touch anything. So it finally, took off on its own, and almost immediately got caught by one of these two. And by the time we got down to get back onto the Zodiac, it was already part of dinner. So that was a bit sad. But anyway, those are the kind of, villains, the skuas. For some reason, they really like chicks. Okay. Again, this is photography from the group leader. These are Gentoo penguins. This is the chin strap. You can see the chin strap. See, right there. And later on in the video, you'll also see Adelie penguins that we also saw. Now, this guy up here, I've identified as a white pelican. What do you think, Ray? Is that correct? No, the beak's not big enough? I thought it is. And look, it's got a fish, a little fish. But yeah. Well, comparison is no. I don't think with a beak that big it's an egret. Anyway, long story short, that photo is not supposed to be in this presentation. It was there was an extension to this trip, which was to Iguazu, which of course is in a tropical area, and that's one of the photos that the group leader took that I think is really good. So I put it in anyway. This is also 5 o'clock in the morning, and on the ship, they had a special breakfast for early people, which I was very happy about. So I'm very early, and we had gone to sit up in the bar, and they had beautiful coffees and also hot muffins, and I mean, just really nice breakfast. And we looked out of the window, and this is what we could see. Now, the boat was actually moving, so that was the first picture I took. This is the second picture I took. I really like it. It's the sun is beginning to come up. Okay, now this is something that I thought was quite interesting. I hope you do too. First of all, there's one part of the Antarctica that is occupied by the British. And on their little part, they have, which I think is an island, they have a post office. And of course, it's only open during the season, which is November, December, January, and February. And of course, it takes up to 3 months for anything to get from there to anywhere in the world. But they have it, and it's kind of a novelty, and people like to stop there. Well, all of the times that we had gone out on Zodiacs, the day was absolutely beautiful. And in fact, the captain put in evening Zodiac trips as well, because the light is different in the evening. And of course, it's light till about midnight. So you could go 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening. This was supposed to be our very last interaction with the land. And we all got dressed and ready for it. And just as we were about to go down to get onto the Zodiacs, the winds had increased to 55 miles an hour. There's no way in this world you can get off the back of that ship safely in 55 miles an hour. So that was the only thing of our trip that was canceled, which we were so happy about because everybody had told us, there were all sorts of problems that, stopped them going to see it. In fact, one of the I told you that the ship was chartered, and somebody from the charter company has to be on every trip. So, if there are any insurance issues. And he told me that on the 3 trips he had done before ours, he hadn't realized that there were so many mountains, because the fog came clear down to the water's edge, and you couldn't really see anything, so they didn't bother taking you off, because if you can't see it when you get off, there's not really very much point. Anyway, so that was to do with Port Lockroy. And then on the ship every day, they also had this little bulletin that told you what was going on back home. And this one I treasured because I lived in LA for 46 years. And in those 46 years, I had only once seen snow. Somewhere embedded in that is a thing that says that in one of the parks that I used to hike in regularly, there was actually 3 feet of snow. And this is in LA. Think about how far south that is. I was just absolutely in shock. So some days we had Wi-Fi, and that particular day we did, and I texted my friend in Lafayette that it was, so much snow was in LA. And he said, but we got it up here too, which I didn't know. But anyway, apparently there was snow up there. And so I said to him, well, what's the temperature and the max temperature going to be in Lafayette? And he said, he looked it up and he said it's 40. And down there it was 42. So that was, I thought, a really ironic thing that was worth noting. All the people who were naturalists had to be able to do a lot of other jobs. So this one, all of them could operate the Zodiacs. And this is my favorite picture, actually, of the whole thing, because I think it looks like an oil painting. And because of the subtle colors, at the top of the glacier, there's got some bluish stuff in there, and then you've got the contrast of the rock and so forth. I really like that picture. Anyway, one of the things that we saw that day on our Zodiac tour was this abandoned ship. And this was a whaling ship that had done its whaling tour and was having a party because they were going home. And apparently they had hurricane lamps all around the top deck. And some of them spilled, possibly, I think there was probably quite a lot of drinking going on. And it set the thing afire. So the captain realized, I guess the connections between rescue services and ships in those days was really very elementary. And so they were actually out in the water, and he found a way to bring that up onto the snow so that it would stand out and he, have a better chance of attracting somebody to help. And in fact, that worked, and everybody from the ship was rescued, which is pretty amazing. But it also makes for very good photos. Okay, this is on that same day as we saw that. This is the fur seals. I just wanted to show you that little bit of video. It wasn't mine, actually. Okay, so now we were extraordinarily lucky because we had every day all the trips that we were supposed to have, and except for that very last one. And if you have to fill in the time, they had all those experts and naturalists having lectures every day. Beautiful lectures with plenty of pictures and diagrams and just funny too. The very first one is the Diego Punta Fernandez is the expedition leader, and he was really doing expeditions, not this sort of tourism as well. And he gave a lecture on photography for Antarctica. And then each one had a little special thing. They won about the whales, and then krill, seabirds of the Drake Passage in the Antarctic Peninsula, geology. And the one I found the most interesting was with this last one. I think this battery's gone, Srila. I can't circle it anymore, but the bottom one is discovering the Antarctic continent, which had lots of excitement because you know, the chase, well, not the chase, but the race between Scott and other explorers to get to the South Pole first, was what that was about, and pictures and all sorts of exciting stuff there. Now, the Drake Passage. Now, the Drake Passage is a real reason that some people don't go to Antarctica, because it's this weird band of water that goes right across that stretch between Ushuaia and Antarctica, and it is really, really turbulent. And so it took us 6 hours to get down the Beagle Channel, which is quite a long way. But then it took us 2 days to get across that band that looks on the map like it's only a small thing. And they didn't give us, I think, sufficient warning about how turbulent it was going to be. They just said, you know, batten that down the hatches. And actually what happened was somebody had, well, first of all, it was turbulent, definitely. It started all of a sudden and anyway, but they had put in each cabin a metal flask that had a stopper in it that was attached to the flask by a little chain. And no sooner have we gone into this really turbulent phase where you really can't get out of bed unless you absolutely have to. All of them in all the cabins started, I think this was a new thing, they all started rattling because the stopper was hitting the flask. And so there was a terrible din. Also, they should have said things like, if you're cleaning your teeth, make sure that you put the glass back in the holder, because otherwise you will have, like I had the next day, a smashed glass on the bathroom floor. But this, going over, the crew always had a sort of their own measurements as to how bad or good the crossing was, and that crossing over there was actually described as 6 or 7. But coming back, it was an 8 or 9. It was really, really rough coming back, and the wind was terrible, and the boat was going from side to side. You see water coming up the windows, and because I was in a 2-person cabin, they had the bed divided so they could be, you know, 2 twin beds, or it could be a queen bed, and it was made up as a queen bed. I said, that's fine. So I was on one side of it, and every time the ship hits, you know, sort of like an iceberg or even a small piece of ice, it sends you up in the air, sort of off the mattress. But that wasn't the thing that worried me most. The thing was that the mattress on the other side didn't have anybody on it. So when instead of just bouncing a little bit, that one sort of went right up in the air. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to be killed. If that lands on me, it really was that rough. So, you know, it is a consideration. But you can fly over, by the way. That was probably the thing that we should have done. Oh, and while I have that in my mind, this belongs to my good friend Alfie over there. And it looks like a watch. And it's actually a thing that is, I think, acupuncture or something. You put it on your pulse, on this side. So it goes on like that. And if you put it on like soon enough, it stops you feeling seasick. And, you know, I've never been seasick, but I was very happy to have it because most people there, and this is for anybody who thinks they might do this, had a patch. It's on your ear. Yeah, it begins with S, I know that. Anyway, but I had read that in Europe they won't give that patch to anybody that is over 65. So, because it apparently can have cognitive consequences. Yeah. No, absolutely. Anyway, none of the people, as far as I know, got sick except one person, and she was in bed for a couple of days. So, you know, it is a consideration. Okay, so now we're almost at the end, except for the video, which I think you'll like. You can see that we came down. We did the whole thing really the way it was intended to be done, but you can see that we did make that stop in the South Shetland Islands. Then we came down through that small channel right down to where the peninsula joins the main part of Antarctica. And so that was our journey as it actually was. Okay, this is, I told you, I think, well, maybe I didn't, that the group leader of the Blue Group was a very creative person. He took a map, seafaring map, and he put all the words and everything in there. Everybody signed beautifully, and then he put the penguins in and the albatross. And on the last night, he made a lottery for it, and the money went to a charity. But somebody actually in Blue Group bought it, or got it, and but he had already made a copy of it, so he had his own copy, but this is the original. Now remember, I said to you at the beginning that there's an age element in this, and this is when I had booked up and found out that it was the ship was leaving on the 18th, which was the day after my birthday. She said, "Oh, well, that's close enough. I'm going to put you down for a birthday celebration." So I had completely forgotten about that. This was, you know, this was towards the end of the trip, and then suddenly, at the end of dinner, there's thump, thump, thump. Everybody, all the crew came out with saucepans and everything, made a huge din, and then sang the birthday song in English, Spanish, and Tagalog. I don't know whether that's the right way to say it, but anyway, it's what Filipinos speak, and the whole crew just about was Filipino. I feel very compelled to put this in because Susan and Srila have been really helpful to make this presentation. And the thing that I think that I want, the idea that I want you to leave, that I want to leave with you is that age really has nothing to do with this. I mean, I have real thoughts that, boy, you know, I shouldn't really be doing this. But there were people on that ship, I'm sure, that were not in their 90s. So if you're 95 and you're thinking about this, don't be daunted, because you can go.
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, I'd save every day like a treasure, and then again I would spend them with you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with. If I had a box just for wishes and dreams that had never come true, the box would be empty except for the memory of how they were answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. Looked around enough to know you're the one I want to go through time with.